The Dallas Mavericks had one hell of a year. And the way that they were able to get themselves to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since, of course, the 2011 season has got this future very bright for this Mavericks team. But obviously, a big question going into this summer is how does this team continue to improve themselves based on what they accomplished this year? A team that won 52 games, at one point was 16 and 18 on the season, under 500, much like how the Boston Celtics were. But then once the calendar turned from December to January, the Mavericks were able to turn things up and play terrific defense. Luka Doncic got into shape as the season went on. And now the Mavericks, who made their run to the Western Conference Finals, are in a pretty good position going into the summer. Yes, they had to do some things, salary cap wise to figure out some things out. But now it's not just about what this team and how they continue to improve, with Jason Kidd and Luka Doncic going into the second year of their relationship, Tim Hardaway Jr. coming back healthy, this upcoming year. Now the question is, who can the Mavericks get to come with them also, knowing now that it appears that a championship window has been opened by their run to the Western Conference Finals, and knowing based on what you did, you may have changed the perception of what you are around the league and what that means for guys coming here. The question being now, do the Mavericks need a co-star with Luka Doncic, or is the formula of building around him with high-level role players the way to go for the Mavericks now going forward here?
I think the Dallas Mavericks have proven this year with their success and the way they did it. They're just like the Los Angeles Rams. There's different ways to build a team. I'm bringing up the Rams because the Rams proved you don't have to use just the draft. In fact, they didn't use the draft at all. Their GM had a T-shirt that said "F them picks," right?
It does,
because
yes.
they didn't need the draft to be successful and win the Super Bowl. The Dallas Mavericks do not have to do the cookie cutter formula of the last 10 years or 8 years in the NBA, which is, let's get as many superstars as we can. Let's just collect talent with trades or free agency. You follow where I'm going with this? Brooklyn Nets have proven a collection of talent doesn't necessarily win a title. Okay? The Dallas Mavericks wound up being one of the final 4 teams in the NBA, surprising to many, and the underdog of that entire group. Underdog in every playoff round they were in, yet they were competitive in every playoff series they played in, including the Golden State series, even though they lost it in 5 games. Because they have a coaching staff that can coach and max up the abilities of the players that they have on their squad. That being said, I'm asking all Maverick fans and people who are watching this thing and love to build teams, do not just think, okay, the only way we can do this is get Luka, the best talent, and a true co-star. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. And that's why you pose the question, and it's like, okay, let's see what they need to do. The biggest problem they're going to have to do, first of all, I shouldn't say the biggest problem. The number one thing you have to realize is, unlike what you have found out this season, is this team's coaching staff loves defense. You didn't know that before the season started. You didn't know that this most efficient offense of all time 2 years ago, with 9 players back from the roster of last summer, could play defense. And yet they had the number 2 defense in the NBA behind Boston in January, from January on. So it shows you that we need to get players that Jason Kidd and his coaching staff wants. And because as great as Luka is offensively, and he's a generational talent, what's his liability? He's not a great defender. He's just not. Mm-hmm. In fact, he even said in one of his exit interviews, and you were there for all of them, he said, I've got to improve my defense. If I improve my defense, we'll be a better team. The question is, how much better can his defense be? And then you have to say, okay, does that mean we need an offensive guy or do we need a defensive guy? Do we need a rim protector or do we need not just Jalen Brunson, but maybe a better defensive guard? And I only bring that up because literally you got to have a defensive guard in some form of fashion.
Sure.
And Jalen Brunson, as much as I love him and they're going to re-sign him and max out his contract and whatever it is, it's not even about how much money you pay Jalen. It's the fact that his size prohibits him from being a great defender. As much as he does as far as leadership, as far as moving the ball around, He is not a defender, and Luka isn't either. So I'm just wondering, okay, does that make you, as you figure this thing out, do you get some more 3-and-D guys? Do you get a Rudy Gobert type if Rudy's available? Do you get, what's his name with Phoenix? Jalen's old teammate at Villanova.
Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges, who was Defensive Player of the Year last year. To me, the perfect fit is Marcus Smart, who's from Dallas. But guess what? Marcus Smart ain't going nowhere. Boston ain't going to let him go nowhere. A couple of years ago, maybe, but not now. Even though Marcus, he wouldn't mind being it. They ain't going to let him go.
Yeah, so when you start looking at this roster here and some of the decisions that they have to make, this is going to be a $300 million backcourt with Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson, assuming they bring Jalen Brunson back, which all indications are they are going to do so. So we're talking about a deal for Luka Doncic that's going to kick in next year. That's going to be, over $200 million with his rookie max extension. Jalen Brunson, who I think will get at minimum $80 million, anywhere between $80 to $100 million, this summer. So you're talking about a pretty expensive backcourt. And now what do you do with pieces that are already there? Spencer Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off the Jones fracture. How healthy does he come back? Is he a part of your possible, trade assets that you may want to use? Obviously, Dorian Finney-Smith, who cannot be moved until mid-August anyway, until, the clause or the portion of his contract, gets solidified in there. So there's things that they can do. They have the number 26 overall pick in this year's NBA draft. And for them, how do you look at building this roster? Because Nico Harrison said it, during his exit interviews. We got to find somebody who's a rim protector, who can help out on the boards, who can defend. There's certain guys out there. Miles Turner is possibly out there.
Let me, as you break down these particular players, let me make a comment on each one. Miles Turner, I love him to death. He's from here. But he and Kristaps Prozingis have played the exact same number of games over the last 3 years. He's always hurt. And I did not realize that until I did some research. I was like, oh my God, I thought he was just hurt this year. No, he's always hurt. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Miles...
And they said his three-pointer is suspect.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with Turner is that, once the Indiana Pacers moved on for Domantas Sabonis, I think they're going to look to build around him with guys like him, Malcolm Brogdon that are still there. Because I think Indiana may be a dark horse, candidate to possibly sign Jalen Brunson. Now, again, the Mavericks can pay him more than anybody else, around the league.
And part of that is because Rick Carlisle loves Jalen Brunson. And Miles Turner, he doesn't necessarily fit in the Rick Carlisle system. He was making noise during the season. And at the same time, you say, building around him. He's been in town, not only at Maverick games in the playoffs, but on TV with Jet Terry doing commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, he ain't happy in Indiana, even though Rick Carlisle may want to rent. Put it like this. All franchises, if they're smart, including the Utah Jazz about Rudy Gobert, you don't act like you're having a fire sale. You got to act like I'm not giving up nobody. And so when you hear, they're not interested. Yeah, they are. They're playing cards. Just always remember that as your team build. You would be crazy, Stephen Jones, to say, we're about to be moving on from a player.
A name that really intrigues me is a guy, Mitchell Robinson in New York. Now, Mitchell Robinson is a guy that's, a high-level defender, can block shots, got versatility on both ends of the floor. I think would be a good fit here and would definitely be an upgrade. Because no matter what, if you bring back Jalen Brunson, that's great. But what you have to do is you have to upgrade the center position. I know Dwight Powell has been a leader for this team, a leader in the community, and has done a lot of great things for this organization. But for him,
they will move on. Ask Harrison Barnes, they will move on.
Yeah, getting paid $11 million. I think it's time to.
You know what? It ain't even. Everybody keeps bringing up these salaries. Salaries are nothing. It's about, can you perform what we need to get done? And he tries hard. It's not his. It is his. He gets the most out of his body. He is not a real center. They've had him down there, and he doesn't even have a big butt like the center for Golden State. What's his name?
Kevon Looney.
Yeah, Looney. Looney's got a big butt. He's quick on his feet. But he's only 6'9". His arms are longer than Powell's. I love Powell to death. He's getting the most out of his body. I ain't even worried about the contract. What I'm concerned about is we can't keep him on the floor in the playoffs. And that's because, can he stay on the roster? He doesn't have a jump shot, whether it's a 2 or a 3. All he can do is sky above the rim, and he's too small. Ask Harrison Barnes. Him being shipped off somewhere is no problem, especially because his contract will expire at the end of next year and somebody will want that contract. That's why I say when people keep bringing up people's salaries, it means nothing in the NBA. Every contract can be moved. Ask Kristaps Prozingis.
So there's a lot of guys that when you start looking at what this team needs to build when it comes to possibly a co-star, and I don't know, look, it's different because each team is going to go about their roster building differently. You know, look at the Boston Celtics. They got a couple of guys with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Obviously, with the Golden State Warriors, what they've built throughout the past 10 years, you know, with Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, and Draymond Green, building through the draft and allowing those guys to become the superstars that they became. For the Mavericks, what I don't want to see happen is, in a lot of ways, what happened with Cleveland. And a lot of people have compared, you know, LeBron's run in 2007 to what, to what Luka did, you know, this year, which was a bunch of role players playing at their peak around a superstar. And they got to a level where, okay, once you met the San Antonio Spurs, Cleveland, once you met the Golden State Warriors, Dallas, they found out there's levels to this. Obviously, we saw what happened with the Cleveland Cavaliers getting swept, you know, in that 2007 series. And now, of course, the Mavericks losing in 5 games to the Golden State Warriors. But what eventually happened was they didn't surround, in LeBron's first go around with Cleveland, they didn't surround him with enough high-level guys or co-star level type players that allowed him to have the kind of success beyond just what he literally carried them to, you know, in the Eastern Conference. What I don't want to see happen is that the same thing happened here in Dallas where, okay, let's settle around with a bunch of, you know, high-level role players and then depend on that dude to continue to carry this franchise on his back. I wouldn't mind seeing a Bradley Beal type or, you know, someone of that nature.
If he'd ever leave DC.
You know, who can go get his own shot, go get his own bucket to be able to take some of that pressure off of Luka. Because one thing that we'll know about him throughout his entire career is his usage rate will continue, you know, to be high, you know, throughout his entire career. Can you find someone that could take some of that pressure off of him, you know, a little bit? And if he can, maybe that can be the way that you go. But right now, it looks like the team's going to bring back Jalen Brunson. They're going to try to find a rim protector and a shot blocker to hopefully help out in the middle and then go from there.